The flashing red and blue lights cut through the quiet night as the cruiser screeched to a stop behind the sleek black sedan. An officer stepped out, adjusting his belt, his hand resting just a little too comfortably on his holster. "License and registration," he barked, tapping the window with his flashlight. The driver rolled it down slowly, meeting the officer's glare with calm eyes. "Evening, officer. May I ask what the problem is?" The cop smirked. "Problem? Yeah, problem is guys like you driving cars like this in neighborhoods like this." "Now, I said license and registration." The man's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. "I'll comply, but I'd advise you to choose your words carefully." The officer leaned closer, sneering. "Is that a threat?" "No," the man replied softly. "It's advice." The officer snatched the documents and gave them only a cursory glance. "So, what are you really doing here? Don't tell me you live around here." "I do." The man's tone carried no heat, only patience running thin. He reached slowly into his inner jacket pocket. The officer stiffened, hand flying toward his weapon. "Hands where I can see them." But instead of a weapon, the driver withdrew a leather case, flipping it open with practiced ease. A gold badge gleamed in the beam of the flashlight. The officer's expression faltered, his breath hitched as he read the lettering, Head of Internal Affairs. The man rose from his seat, stepping into the wash of flashing lights, his calm now sharpened into authority. "Officer, tomorrow morning, you'll be in my office. With your badge in hand. Do you understand?" The officer's mouth opened, but no words came. He nodded stiffly, the color draining from his face. The man slid back into his car, started the engine, and pulled away, leaving the cruiser's lights spinning in the empty street. The officer stood frozen beside his patrol car, staring at his own reflection in the window, forced to confront the gravity of what he had just done. Perfect, here's the expanded version with no scene headings at all, just flowing like a cinematic short story. Dash dash dash. The tires screeched slightly as the police cruiser came to a halt behind the black sedan. The officer strode up to the driver's window, flashlight beam cutting across the man's face. "License and registration," the officer snapped, voice already laced with suspicion. The driver lowered the window, his movements measured. "Evening, officer. May I ask why I've been stopped?" The officer smirked. "You know why. Car like this, at this hour, in this neighborhood, looks out of place." "Now, I said license and registration." The man handed over his documents calmly. "Everything is in order. I live not far from here." The cop barely glanced at the license before firing off another question. "Really? You expect me to believe that? You don't look like the type who belongs here. What are you really doing?" The driver's voice stayed steady, though his patience was thinning. "I'd advise you to be careful with how you're speaking to me." The officer chuckled under his breath, leaning closer to the window. "Careful, don't tell me you're trying to intimidate me." "No," the man said evenly. "I'm reminding you that words, and actions, have consequences." The officer's grin faded, replaced with irritation. "Step out of the vehicle. Now." The man exhaled slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket. The officer stiffened instantly, hand flying to the grip of his gun. "Don't move. Hands where I can see them." With deliberate calm, the man pulled out not a weapon but a leather case. He flicked it open. A polished gold badge caught the beam of the flashlight. The officer blinked, his bravado faltering as he leaned in to read it. His face went pale. "Internal Affairs, Division Chief." The man stepped out of the car, his presence commanding. He shut the door softly behind him, the silence more cutting than anger. "Officer," he said, voice firm, "tomorrow morning you'll report to my office. Bring your badge with you. Do you understand?" The cop swallowed hard, words failing him. He managed only a stiff nod, eyes wide with the realization of his mistake. The man returned to his car, started the engine, and drove off, leaving the patrol lights spinning across the empty street. The officer stood frozen beside his cruiser, staring at his own reflection in the glass, haunted by the knowledge that his career, and his prejudice, had just caught up to him. The night was quiet until red and blue lights exploded in the rearview mirror. The black sedan eased to the side of the road, its driver calm, composed. From the cruiser, a white officer stepped out with deliberate heaviness in his stride. His hand hovered close to his holster as though he were preparing for trouble before any even began. He tapped the window with his flashlight. "License and registration." The window slid down smoothly. The driver looked up at him, eyes steady. "Evening, officer. May I ask why I've been pulled over?" The officer gave a short, dismissive laugh. "Why? You know why. Fancy car, late at night, in this neighborhood. Doesn't add up. Now don't stall. License and registration. The driver handed the documents over without argument. Everything is valid. I live nearby. The officer skimmed the license for barely a second before flicking his eyes back to the driver. You live here. Don't lie to me. Folks around here don't look like you. The driver's lips pressed into a thin line, his voice controlled. I'll remind you, officer, to be careful with what you say. The cop leaned down further, smirk curling at his lips. Is that supposed to scare me? You think you can tell me how to do my job? No, the man replied evenly. I'm telling you that your words and actions have consequences. The officer's smirk stiffened into irritation. Step out of the car. Now. A heavy pause lingered. The driver exhaled slowly, then reached toward his inner jacket pocket. The officer reacted instantly, hand snapping to his weapon. Keep your hands where I can see them. Don't try anything. The driver moved calmly, deliberately, pulling out a black leather case. He flipped it open. A badge glinted in the flashlight's harsh glare. The officer froze. His eyes darted to the lettering, reading it once, then again to be sure. Internal Affairs. Division Chief. The driver stepped out, tall and composed, shutting the door with quiet finality. The authority in his voice was unmistakable. Officer, tomorrow morning you'll report to my office. Bring your badge with you. The cop's mouth worked, but no words came. His bravado dissolved into silence, his face pale under the strobing lights. He gave a stiff, shameful nod. The man gave him one last look, then returned to his car. The engine rumbled to life, and the sedan rolled away, tail lights fading into the dark. The flashing patrol lights still washed the empty street in red and blue, reflecting off the cruiser's windows. The officer stood there alone, staring at his own reflection in the glass, confronting not just his mistake, but the truth that his prejudice had finally caught up to him. The street was empty except for the steady hum of a black sedan gliding past rows of darkened houses. Then came the sudden burst of red and blue behind it. The driver sighed quietly as he pulled over, keeping his hands steady on the wheel. The police cruiser stopped hard. A white officer stepped out, shoulders squared, boots crunching against the pavement. His flashlight beam cut through the night as he approached the driver's window, his hand hovering close to the grip of his gun. License and registration, he demanded, his tone sharp, already dripping with suspicion. The window rolled down with a quiet mechanical whir. The driver, a black man in his 40s, met the officer's gaze evenly. Good evening, officer. May I ask the reason for the stop? The cop gave a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Reason, let's see. Expensive car. Late at night. In this neighborhood. Doesn't look right to me. Now don't play games. License and registration. The driver complied, passing over the documents with calm hands. Everything is valid. I live nearby. The officer gave the license a glance so quick it was meaningless, then tossed a look back at him. Nearby? Huh, doesn't look like the kind of neighborhood you'd live in. You sure you're not just passing through? The driver's voice stayed level, but there was an edge of warning in it now. I'd advise you to be mindful of how you speak to me. The cop leaned closer to the window, smirk widening. Or what? You threatening me? You think you can tell me how to do my job? No, the man said, his words measured. I'm telling you that your choices tonight matter. The officer scoffed, impatient. Step out of the vehicle. Now. For a moment, the driver didn't move. Then he slowly reached toward his inner jacket pocket. The officer instantly stiffened, hand flying to his weapon. Hands where I can see them. Don't try me. The man moved deliberately, calmly pulling out a leather case. He flipped it open, and a badge gleamed under the flashlight's glare. The officer froze. His eyes scanned the lettering, and his face drained of color. The words were clear. Internal Affairs. Division Chief. The driver pushed the door open and stepped out of the sedan. He didn't raise his voice, but his presence carried authority that pressed down heavier than anger. Officer, he said firmly, tomorrow morning, you'll report to my office. Bring your badge with you. Do you understand? The cop's mouth opened, but no sound came. His earlier confidence evaporated. All that remained was a stiff nod and wide eyes filled with regret. The man gave him a long, unreadable look before returning to his car. The engine turned over, and the sedan pulled smoothly back onto the road, disappearing into the night. The patrol car's lights still flashed across the empty street, reflecting against the cruiser's windows. The officer remained standing there, frozen in place, staring at his own pale reflection in the glass, forced to face the truth that his prejudice, unchecked for too long, had finally caught up with him.